Welcome on into the show, everybody. It is episode 6, season 8 here on the Hoopers Log here for Tuesday, October 26th, 2021. That's right, we are here talking about the NBA regular season, and it's underway, a week under the books, and we are here talking about it here on the Hoopers Log. But I think one of the bigger things we're going to talk about today is the snubs in the 75th anniversary team. I know everybody's been talking about it for really the last couple of days now, 3-4 days, in regards to when the list finally came out on Thursday night. And we've had Friday, Saturday, Sunday, obviously Monday, and I'm sure as everybody's, memories go, they usually forget about the topics that are in front of them and they move on. But I really wanted to give an in-depth, deep dive into the snubs because this is important. I feel like this is a very, very important list in regards to setting precedents, in regards to players and teams, and what the overall impact is of how we look at and judge history moving forward. And for the most part, about 90% of this list is spot on. And I won't lie, it's pretty damn good. There were players that I didn't like that were on the list, but they're deserved because of their resume and because of what they've put forth down thus far. And I didn't feel like it was over the top to leave them in regards to, why they were, because their resume speaks for themselves. I mean, whether their expectations are where they are, that's not going to matter 25 years from now when we do another list of the NBA 100, because that's coming. There's going to be a list of the NBA 100. And I feel like the list that's out right now is going to be the same list of players that are going to be in when we get to that list down the road. But okay, that's what we're going to talk about for the most part today. I also wanted to really dig deep into the greatness of Steph Curry today because he has taken that next step as a player where it's undeniable at this point. And really, he's turned me around completely over the last 6 years in regards to where he is in his career. And I wanted to kind of put a little bit of a tailspin, a good thing. And I'm trying to think of the word, but I want to put a cap on what I think he can be now moving forward for really the second half of his career. Let's be honest. This decade is going to be the second half of his career. I don't think he's going to play past this decade, and if he does, he's probably just going to be a guy off the bench shooting threes, which, to be honest, he can probably do that until he's 90 years old. I'm not going to lie. He's got the shot that's so efficient, so great, that he could probably be a spot shooter in the NBA for about 20 years after, the prime of his career, or, the time that he can actually play as a full-blown player in the league. That's not even a lie. But my point being is we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about LeBron James and the expectations that are in front of him. And I feel like that the expectations should be and have been for the last 3 to 4 years. And why I think, obviously, people are going to keep going back to the well of the narrative and the conversation around LeBron that, let's just keep going back to the well and let's keep going back to the bag of goodies so that we can get our ratings. That's pretty much what I feel like LeBron's become. But at the same time, I feel like it's a decent narrative to adhere to in regards to where he's moving forward for really the rest of his career. Let's be honest. He's only got another 4 or 5 years, at least on his contract, what he's playing till 2024, 2025 at least. He'll be 40 years old. So in that regard, I mean, he's playing for another 4 years. So we have to really set down and lay down what his expectations are. Okay, so let's get this started. The Hoopers Log, episode 6, season 8 here on theleadsm.com. We have had over a month and a half of content, and it has been brilliant here. Theleadsm.com has been growing like wildfire here on Podbean and all the other outlets that we put together. And I can't thank you enough for allowing me to have this platform to discuss with you guys and move forward with where we are. All right, let's start off with the top 75 and go from there. Obviously, it was a 76-man list. So in all, 71 of the 76 I agreed with. I did not have a problem with. First of all, I am so happy because this is what, my point being about this whole point about talking about it, I'm really not that upset about who they left on and left off because, let's be honest, very subjective, very understandable why they had everybody on this list. There's one, maybe 2 players on this list where I'm like, what the hell? But outside of that, how can you really be mad about 74, 75 players that are on the list when it's a list of 76? I mean, you can't really be that mad. For the most part, they've got it right, and I'm not upset. But I wanted to nitpick and to really put the subjective twist on why certain players needed to be in and why certain players didn't get in, because I think a lot of people are missing certain aspects of basketball overall instead of missing the overall substance of what the list should be about. The list, I think the players that I don't like that are on the list because they've contributed, obviously, to the entertainment of the game, which is, that's why we all watch, right? The entertainment, the greatness, the players, the winning. We watch for those reasons. We watch for whatever reason we want, right? But all 76 of these players, in some regard, in some fashion or way, have contributed to mass amounts of appeal and excitement for the game of basketball, specifically in the NBA. And when I say specifically in the NBA, I'm talking about why the game has gotten to the point where it is and why it's grown so massively over the last however many X amount of years, 75 years now. I love the fact that the NBA left the original 50 on. I said this from when they started this idea back in July, August, when they said they were going to reveal a list of 75 players. And I sat there and said, man, if they leave anybody off that top 50, if they leave anybody off that greatest 50 list from 96, 97, if they leave anybody off that, I'm going to go ham because that's not cool. You cannot leave off the players who originated this league in the first 50 years. You can't do it. You cannot do it. That was my first thing. My second thing was, man, if they leave off Dominique Wilkins, I swear to God, I'm going to flip a lid. Because this man right here got robbed on the top 50. Honestly, and in all sincerity, he should have taken over Shaq's spot. Shaq said it on Inside the NBA on the night that they were revealing the final 25 of the 75. He said it himself. He said Dominique should have been in instead of me. 100% agree. 100% accurate. And we all know that that should have been the case. Dominique Wilkins was a top 10, top 7 scorer in the NBA ever at the time of the list coming out. You can't leave that guy off the list. There's a couple other players, too, that should have probably been on that top 50, but for the most part, they got the top 50 right. That's why it's tough to argue. And, outside of Dominique Wilkins, there's a couple guys, maybe Adrian Dantley, Alex English. There's a couple of names out there where you sit there and you're like, okay, maybe they should have been on the top 50. But for the most part, they got it right. Okay. My other thing was if they didn't have, if they didn't have the main names that we were going through, that we all know, right? Guys like Giannis. I mean, I feel like Giannis could have been replaced by somebody, but let's be honest, after what he just did, you can't leave him off the list now. Because he is in that conversation of guys where you're like, no, he's going to expand and be great. It's kind of like Shaq. When Shaq got in 96, 97, in that 50 list, we looked at him and said, yeah, he's pretty much going to be a guarantee to be on. That's kind of where Giannis is in regards to this whole list, because in all reality, I think he's the youngest guy on this list altogether. So we looked at that and we said, well, he's pretty young, but I think he's pretty obvious at the same time after what he just did. And even if he kind of flails out a la Dwight Howard, which we're going to talk about him in a minute, but if he were to flail out like a Dwight Howard, I still think he should be on this list, which then gets me to the Dwight Howard conversation, which I wanted to bring up. I feel like outside of really the rest of the names, outside of maybe 4 or 5 guys, I felt like Dwight Howard was the one that got the most robbed. In fact, I think there were a couple of players that should have been on outside of not just Dwight Howard. I think Tracy Mcgrady should have been on as well. I think a lot of what's going on in the world today regarding history and our memories and our short-term, long-term memory regarding what's going on with how we want to remember and see and can recall certain events in NBA history. If Tracy Mcgrady did what he was doing in the early 2000s, from 2002 to about 2004, because he won back-to-back scoring championships, he was the best scorer in basketball in that portion of the NBA, and there was zero debate. Nobody was going to debate that anybody was better than Tracy McGrady. Yeah, you could have said Allen Iverson had a better bag. You could have said, Ray Allen was the best. Ray Allen in the early 2000s was the Steph Curry of now. Oh, but Chris, he's not as good as Steph. I'm not debating that. What I'm trying to tell you is just from the outside, no one was better than Ray Allen at that point in time in the NBA, period. Nobody. And there were guys who probably had just as good a, bag. Kevin Garnett had a bag back then. People forget about Kevin Garnett's bag. Kobe Bryant had a freaking bag. But in regards to just flat out scoring the basketball from any point on the floor, at any time, from any angle, from any area you wanted, T-Mac would get you a bucket. He was literally a walking bucket. Tracy McGrady, every single Halloween, which we know is coming right around the corner, coming up this weekend. If Tracy McGrady dressed up as a bucket, nobody would tell the difference, because that's what he was in the early 2000s. He was a bucket. And I think what's frustrating to me, and again, this is very, very nitpicky, because for the most part, this list is spot on. They got Dwayne Wade on, absolutely. Russell Westbrook, absolutely. Gary Payton, no doubt. Chris Paul, Dirk, Steve Nash, Reggie Miller. Now, you could have made the debate that Reggie Miller couldn't be in because maybe he didn't have the resume as other guys, but in regards to his impact and his being the guy for Indiana for so many years, on top of before Ray Allen came into the league, being the best three-point shooter this league had ever seen, up until Ray Allen got into his prime, really until Ray Allen really got to the Sonics. That was really when you said, okay, Reggie's the greatest three-point shooter of all time. Then, bang, all of a sudden came Ray Allen, and you're like, damn. And then all of a sudden we saw Steph Curry, and then we saw that change the game. But the point being is Reggie Miller, he was in that entity of, oh, damn, that's a bad man, so you got to put him in. Karl Malone, no debate, second greatest scorer of all time. The mailman, he came to deliver every single night with John Stockton. We saw that. Kobe Bryant got in. Steph Curry. I did have some qualms when I saw Anthony Davis's name pop in, but that's where it came back to the resume. Listen, I can be the guy who doesn't like Anthony Davis because altogether he just frustrates the hell out of me because his expectations to be the player that we all expect him to be is there and where it should be. But let's be honest, his resume is ridiculous, and he's halfway through his career, and if all he does is do that half of what he's done right now to the end of his career, he's going to have like 6 or 7, maybe 8 first-team All-NBA selections just because of his talent alone, because he's that good. I can disagree with the fact that his talent and what he's done throughout his career is below our expectations, but I can't deny the fact that history down the road in time will say, oh no, Anthony Davis's resume puts him in the top 75, which no debate does. It just frustrates me because I feel like he could be way, 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 way better based on his health, based on his availability, based on his attitude, based on his attempt at playing the game of basketball at certain points in his career. That's just the expectation perspective of me. But that expectation of me doesn't matter if his resume fits the bill, which it does. And from that perspective, he's in. I'm not upset about it. Ray Allen, no debate in. Tim Duncan, Kevin Durant, Kevin Garnett, James Harden, Allen Iverson, no debate, LeBron James, Jason Kidd, Kawhi Leonard. Those guys, all that I just listed off, are all, in my opinion, really no debate guys. And I'm fine with it. I'm totally cool with it. But these are the 5 guys that I could sit back right now. And again, they're all deserved in different perspectives. But I can tell you why they probably don't deserve and why they should have had a second list, which I can guarantee you they probably did have a second look at in regards to what they've done overall. The first one that I think is, actually, I'll say these first 2, I can say I understand why they are in the top 75. Dennis Rodman and Bob Mcadoo. Bob Mcadoo, 2-time champion with the Lakers, was an incredible player. Won the MVP with the Buffalo squad back in the day. Absolutely incredible basketball player. But I feel like he's a name. He was one of the conversation pieces and guys and names that you could put in for the original 50 and nobody would have been mad about. But his career is it's just so like wonky. When you really look at it on Wikipedia or when you look at it on NBA reference or wherever you want to go, basketball reference, his stats and his legacy are so convoluted and different. It doesn't mean he wasn't an unbelievable player. He's a Hall of Famer. That's the other thing, too, I want to get across. All these guys are Hall of Famers. All these, maybe not all of them, but I'll talk about the guy who I don't think he's yet even in the conversation of a Hall of Fame, but you get my point. Bob McAdoo's career is very fascinating. Buffalo Braves, 72-76, obviously won the MVP in 1975, and nobody was going to debate that. That's an incredible year. 5-time All-Star, All-NBA first team in the year he won MVP, but outside of that, All-NBA second team, he was Rookie of the Year, All-Rookie team, whatever, 3-time scoring champion, which is remarkable. 3-time scoring champion is remarkable. That ain't gonna disappear from anybody. Absolutely incredible. He won the FIBA Cup championship, 2-time EuroLeague championship. But see, then those things right there, those EuroLeagues, those to me don't equate to what NBA success is. It kind of goes back to another name that's on this list. I'm going to get to Dennis Rodman in a second. It goes back to this other name on my list of 5 players that I don't really agree with, and that's Carmelo Anthony. Listen, I'm one of the biggest defenders of Carmelo Anthony in regards to his ability to play the game. He's going to go to the Hall of Fame. He's going to be one of the greatest. He's easily a top 100 player of all time. There's no debate in that book for me. But here's the problem with Carmelo Anthony being on this list. Bob Mcadoo, I like. And I am okay with, but it's very similar to Carmelo Anthony. A lot of Bob McAdoo's success came to, obviously, he got traded around. He got moved around. He got, kind of dished out after he played for the Braves. Obviously, after he played for the Buffalo Braves, he kind of flailed everywhere. He contributed with the Lakers back in the 80s. And nobody's going to debate how great he is. He's a Hall of Famer. But it's from the standpoint of when you look at this list, it's like, damn, he wasn't really like a set-in-stone piece. And that was a big-time thing for that era. If you played for one, maybe 2 teams, like Kareem. Kareem's a perfect example. 2 teams, we know why he played, why he moved, that's fine. Bob McAdoo, dude, he was everywhere. He was literally everywhere. It's very hard to pinpoint what Bob McAdoo you liked. Obviously, the better Bob McAdoo was the one on the Buffalo Braves, but to really pinpoint it is really tough from a historical perspective. And for him to not get on the top 50, I feel like it's really hard to justify. I know Dominique Wilkins got in the top 50, but it's hard to justify a Bob McAdoo getting in now when it's been over 50 years since he was really that relevant in the league. And that's not to say he's not a Hall of Famer, because he is. But in top 75 realm, it becomes tough. So then who do you replace him with, right? Alex English is another name out there. One of the greatest scorers of all time. You can make the debate that, before the current generation of players from the 90s, 2000s, and 2010s, he was in the conversation of one of the best scorers ever. He was. But he didn't have enough accolades to really get to the point. He's one of those fringe guys. That's why I feel like Bob McAdoo was. He was one of those fringe guys. And I feel like Bob McAdoo, if you had left him off this list and you had maybe put a Bernard King in, an Alex English, a Vince Carter, a Grant Hill, I don't think anybody would have gotten mad about that. I don't think anybody would have been upset about that. Maybe even a Chris Bosh. Because you're going to have fringe names that pop up on this list. And I think Bob McAdoo, from a overall long-term time perspective, is a fringe name on this list. That is not to say he's not an all-time great. That's not to say he's not a Hall of Famer. That's not to say he's an absolute important piece to this league. But it's very interesting because now when we look at players today, if Bob McAdoo did what he did today and he was doing it currently, would he be in the conversation? I don't know, because it's really not as impressive as what other guys have done. Again, if you would have replaced Bob McAdoo with Dwight Howard, ain't nobody complaining. Ain't nobody complaining. Bernard King, ain't nobody complaining. Alex English, I wouldn't be mad about it. But Bob McAdoo is one of those fringe players. I'm happy he's on the list because he's a great player, an unbelievable player all time. But overall, it's very fringy. Let's go to Dennis Rodman before I go to Carmelo Anthony, because I'm kind of splitting off you here for a minute. Dennis Rodman, we all know, has the greatest motor, energy, presence in NBA history. There's zero debate there. We all know that Dennis Rodman is strictly on this list because of his all-out effort. If everybody played with Dennis Rodman's effort, this league would be 50 times further ahead than it is right now. I can guarantee you that. I can guarantee you it would be better than soccer. I can guarantee you it'd be better than football. I can guarantee it'd be better than baseball. I can guarantee you that any other sport you think about, if every single player played to the degree that Dennis Rodman played this game in regards to effort, there would be no singular sport that would be better than the sport of basketball, and that is a zero debate conversation. That is zero debate. Because his effort is that incredible. It's a lot like Russell Westbrook, except Russell Westbrook's way more talented than Dennis Rodman could ever be. But that's not the point. Dennis Rodman defensively was one of the biggest dynamos you could ever envision. From a rebounding perspective, he out-rebounded his size. He could play everybody on the court. I mean, he could do everything for you. My problem is when you get to these lists, these kind of lists, you take one step back and you say, okay, who has the resume? Who is the team? Who is the one guy, not just the one guy, maybe two, the guys that you look at and you say they are in the conversation for being the greatest at what they do ever. And when you look at Dennis Rodman's resume, let's just take a step back and take a look at it. Dennis Rodman, two-time NBA Defensive Player of the Year, right? We all know that conversation of where he's at in regards to that, right? Five-time NBA champion, but let's be honest, all of those are with the Bulls. Well, no, excuse me. Hold up. 3 of those are with the Bulls. 2 of those are with the Pistons. He was clearly a big part of the Pistons' reasons. We all know that. 2-time All-Star. Now, just fathom that. A 2-time All-Star. Like, how much of a slap in the face is it to put a guy on a top 75 list who went to 2 All-Star games? But Chris, that's not what Dennis Rodman was about. Listen, I know. I love Dennis Rodman. I think he's amazing. That's like saying Pat Bev should be on this list because of his effort. That's like saying Tony Allen should be on this list because of his defense. That's like saying Bruce Bowen should be on this list because of his ability to impact the game defensively for the Spurs. No, that's not why Dennis Rodman should be on this list. He was a 2-time NBA third team. All-NBA third team, 92 and 95. He never really made a first-team All-NBA. He had no chance to make a first-team All-NBA. Obviously, the 7-time NBA All-Defensive second team. Or excuse me, first team. I read the second team behind that. But he got All-NBA second team in 94. 7-time rebound championship. That's incredible. That's absolutely phenomenal. No debate there. Absolutely phenomenal. But that's it. There's nothing else other than that. And when you start breaking down really the greatest players ever and what they had and what they could do and all that, you look at a Dwight Howard and you say, well, Dwight Howard had way better resume than that. Way better resume. And that's what it comes back to, right? It comes back to resume, comes back to this. And there's no debate here that you cannot gauge effort. And we all know Dennis Rodman's effort is through the roof. We know that. And it's legendary. And that's why he's on this list, is because of that. We know that you cannot tell the story of the league without Dennis Rodman. That is a fact. That's why I'm not upset he's on the list. I'm just more upset that there's a couple of guys on the list that are left off because of a guy like Dennis Rodman getting on. Carmelo Anthony, I wanted to get to him. Melo is one of the greatest scorers of all time. There's no debate about that. He, in my opinion, for my money, if I had Carmelo Anthony in his prime, back when he played for the Knicks, I went to a game in Madison Square Garden when he played once, and I was blown away. I was absolutely blown away. His jump shot was so quick in his prime. His ability to post up anybody, drive as well. He had the entire bag. His ability to break down a defender face up, off the post, his ability to post up from the top of the key, on the corner of the key, on the elbow, anywhere he wanted, and get any shot he wanted in his career is legendary. It is absolutely legendary. In my book, he has the deepest bag of all time. He had greatest offensive repertoire I've ever seen. And that comes down to guys with their physical ability. That comes down to guys with their skill set. That comes down to guys with their finesse capabilities. And Carmelo Anthony had this ability in his prime to do everything he wanted offensively. And when he was hitting, there's nothing you could do to guard him. You couldn't do anything. You couldn't guard him with anybody. You couldn't guard him with Dennis Rodman. You couldn't guard him with Tony Allen. He was that good. The problem is the consistency. And then you come back to the resume of Carmelo Anthony. You come right back to it. And you start to say, okay, he's an amazing player. There's no debate. We know that obviously him and LeBron and D-Wade came in together. And I think what baffles me the most in regards to Carmelo Anthony being on this list is that I feel like at some point the myth starts to override the actuality of what he did. He's a 10-time All-Star. Phenomenal, right? That's phenomenal. 2-time All-NBA second team, but there's no All-NBA first teams. Again, we get down the road of how many first-team All-NBAs did he ever get? 4-time All-NBA third team, social justice champion award. Nobody really, come on, that's not a big deal. Who cares about that in regards to actual basketball play? NBA scoring champion, only 1 year, and that was 2013. 1 year of his entire career. So outside of 2013, what does his scoring really add up to? Nothing. He's not an NBA champion. Outside of his rookie year, he hasn't really done anything. And this is just regarding NBA, right? Carmelo Anthony, inside the confines of what the NBA is, which is 30 teams who play for an NBA championship every single year, Carmelo Anthony is possibly, outside of his scoring capabilities, one of the most overrated NBA players of all time. That's not to sit here and rip the man. That's just the facts. He's not a guaranteed bona fide Hall of Famer right now as we sit. I think he's in the Hall of Fame, but there have been debates after he left New York. Is this guy even in the Hall of Fame? You shouldn't be having those debates about a guy who's on the top 75 list ever. These should be no debate Hall of Famers that are on this list. No debate Hall of Famers. There are two guys on this list who are not no debate Hall of Famers. I'm going to get to the other guy in a minute. But I think if you're going to have a guy on a list who had an unbelievable scoring capability, that's Tracy Mcgrady. Go look at Tracy Mcgrady and his resume just for a second, and then compare it to Carmelo Anthony, just in regards to what he actually did. Not his all-time numbers, not what he's done overall, just what he did for a short amount of time and for his whole entire career. He's a two-time All-NBA first team, 2002 and 2003. He's a two-time NBA scoring champion, 2003 and 2004. He had an All-NBA third-team selection twice, All-NBA second team 3 times. This dude was in the All-NBA conversation 7 times in his career. 7 times. Melo was in it 3 times. Melo won the scoring championship once. Tracy won it twice. You look at All-Star appearances, 7. From 01 to 07, 7. And you knew it was a no debate that he was going to be there. So we put Melo in the place, even though McGrady had the better resume for the shorter amount of time. But for some reason, we put Melo in because T-Mac didn't have as long of a pedigree, but T-Mac has the better resume in regards to what he actually accomplished within the confines of the NBA. This is where when people start talking about players who got snubbed, I want to dive right into it real quick. Carmelo Anthony. If you look at him from the confines of what the NBA 75th anniversary team is. We're not talking about basketball's 75th anniversary. We're talking about the NBA. Melo, one of the greatest Olympic scorers ever. He is probably the greatest Olympic basketball player ever from a resume perspective. What does he have? 4 championships? And he was really the main reason on a couple of them. Not LeBron, not Kobe. It was Carmelo. His ability to score the basketball in international play is absolutely legendary. That is no debate greatness. What Melo did at Syracuse is no debate greatness. What Melo did at Oak Hill in high school is no debate greatness. But when you break down what the man did in the confines of NBA conversation, he is not a top 75 player ever. He's actually, in regards to NBA, if the NBA had a Hall of Fame by itself, a fringe Hall of Fame conversation player. T-Mac is more of a he's in the Hall of Fame. T-Mac is in the Hall of Fame. He should be taking Melo's spot, period. Guys who got left off the list, Pau Gasol, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, all those guys, right? People were saying, oh, Paul Gasol should have got on before Melo or Damien Lillard or Paul Pierce or whatever. You know, they should have gotten on before then. Here's the problem. A lot of Paul Gasol's greatness outside of those couple of years in LA were really done in the European leagues and, the international play. That's where a lot of his greatness of boosting the game of basketball came to be. It's not saying Paul Gasol is not a Hall of Famer, because he is. But let's be honest, a lot of Paul Gasol's legend comes from his ability to lift the Spanish team to where it got to all time in the ranks of international play. He's the guy. Granted, unbelievable NBA career, but you never saw him as a guy where you're like, that's the reason that team's successful. He is part of a big chunk of why the Lakers won back-to-back titles in 09 and 10. There is no debate about that. But we all got to be real. Without Kobe, that team's going nowhere. Because look at their team. If you go back and look at those rosters, if it wasn't for Kobe, there's no way those rosters go anywhere. There's just no way. It's not ripping Pau Gasol. He's a no debate Hall of Famer. Tony Parker. Tony Parker won a Finals MVP in 07. He's won 4 championships. But let's be honest, without Tim Duncan, there ain't no way Tony Parker's winning any of those championships. There ain't no way. Now maybe in 07 they go deep in the playoffs, but they're not going to the championship. They're not going to the championship. Tony Parker is a legend because he is the greatest French player of all time. That is why he is a legend. If you took him out of the French landscape of that conversation, Tony Parker's not in the conversation of being a guy who's even near this NBA thing. When people say he should have been in, I mean, that's very nice as a Spurs fan. But when I start to really break it down on why a guy like Pau Gasol didn't get in, it's because they're looking at the whole international landscape, which is why, again, it doesn't make sense why Carmelo Anthony got on, because internationally, Carmelo Anthony was absolutely brilliant. Not in the NBA confines. Not to say he isn't, he wasn't, but not to the degree of a guy like Tracy McGrady or even a Dwight Howard. And then you look at a guy like Manu Ginobili. Well, Manu Ginobili was a 6-man off the bench. Manu Ginobili, in all essence, these first 75 years of the NBA, is the greatest Argentinian basketball player ever. For those that don't know, Argentina is not a bed of NBA superstars. It is a soccer born and bred place. And Manu Ginobili came out of that, and there was absolutely no ground for him to stand on to be anything legendary, and he came out and was the greatest Argentinian basketball player ever and won a Olympic gold in 2004. He blew past everybody's expectation. And then in 2005, he really should have won the Finals MVP, in my opinion. He really should have in 2005. But that doesn't mean I think he should be in the top 75. That's why when people say, "Oh, Pau Gasol got robbed," well, nah, I don't know, because if you took out his European credentials or his international credentials, does he really get in the conversation? It's the same thing with Melo. If you took out Melo's Olympic stardom and what he did internationally, does it really matter what he like? At that point, you look at his NBA career and you're like, really? That's why I think it's weird that Melo got in, and a guy like Pau Gasol, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, like those guys all got left out. For, I think it's their international credentials. So that's just me. But I think the biggest name here, Paul Pierce was another guy I had on my list. He's not the biggest name, but as I've kind of like thought about it in my mind and regurgitated it and kept on it, I've looked at it and said, you know what, Paul Pierce, I think he does need to be there, even though you could easily put someone else there. You could put Vince Carter there. You could put Grant Hill there. You could put Bernard King. I mean, really, those are all kind of my same names. Definitely Dwight Howard over Paul Pierce could easily be the case. But Paul Pierce defined what the Boston Celtics were for a good 15 years. So I'm not too mad at the fact that Paul Pierce is on the list because he's a Hall of Famer, no debate, one of the greatest offensive skill sets ever. Not to say he is the great, but he was one of those guys where if it wasn't for a couple of names, he would be the name. I mean, that's what he was. And so that's why I'm not too mad at Paul Pierce. But if he would have gotten replaced, it would have been understandable. But if it wasn't for him creating the super team in 08, they never would have won that title, so his legacy would have not been as great as it is. Because that's what they value in Boston. It's championships. He would have never won one if it wasn't for bringing KG and Ray Allen there. There's no way. There's no way. But that's not to say he wasn't an unbelievable player and an unbelievable scorer, because he was. But he's one of those guys where if you look, hey, Dwight Howard over Paul Pierce, ain't nobody getting mad at that. He was the best center of his generation. Dwight Howard is the best center of his generation. There's nobody's debating that. The name, though, I think we all know shouldn't be on this list is Damien Lillard. Listen, I live out here in the Pacific Northwest. I love Damien Lillard. I think he's badass. I think he's just fantastic. I think he's one of the greatest scorers at the point guard position we've ever seen. He's not better than Kyrie. He's not better than Steph. He's not better than a couple other names that are out there. But in regards to this current generation, if you took out Steph and Kyrie, it's Damien Lillard. But here's the problem. They haven't done anything. They got to a Western Conference Finals a couple years ago, and they got shellacked without Kevin Durant and without Klay. Well, Klay Thompson was still there in 2019. But Golden State wasn't even full strength, and Damien Lillard couldn't do anything. Now, there are instances in this league where you can look back and look at Damien Lillard and say, you know what, Damien Lillard has moments in this league that are absolutely that shot against the Thunder back in 2000, I think it was 2019. God, it was an unbelievable shot. The shot against Houston back in 2015, 2014. Just unbelievable. But in regards to the resume, it's not there. The only thing he's done resume-wise that is brilliant is his 2018 campaign when he got first team All-NBA. And outside of that, it's like, no, he's just not there. From a talent perspective, sure, but there's tons of guys who are talent perspective in the conversation of being here. He's not there. And what bugs me the most about him, because everybody else, listen, everybody else, even Melo, you can sit back and say, Melo, okay. Paul Pierce, okay. Dennis Rodman, yeah. Bob Mcadoo, not mad about it. But Damien Lillard, guys, Dwight Howard's sitting out there, and he should have replaced Damien Lillard. That's just the facts. Nobody's going to debate that. You cannot sit here and tell me or anybody at the Lead SM, because I think we are all in the same agreement. You cannot have Dwight Howard, who, God, let's just go look at Dwight Howard's resume for a minute, because this is just ridiculous. I mean, Dwight Howard, 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, right? Obviously different teams. He had his drama in Orlando, but nobody really cares about that. 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, all 3 years in a row, 09 to 11. 4-time, that's one of the one else I got. 4-time defensive first team from 09 to 12. That's ridiculous. Guys don't do that. Guys just don't do that, especially when they're as great as him. 5-time All-NBA first team from 08 to 12. Again, 5 straight years of All-NBA first team. All-NBA Defensive Player of the Year. Led his team, yes, led his team to the 2009 NBA Finals. Did he get mollywopped by Kobe Bryant and the Lakers? Absolutely. But in regards to what he did that year, LeBron James was arguably the best player in the league, and he made them look like nothing. Dwight Howard, at one point in this league, we looked at being the next Shaq. And you know where Shaq ranks all time in centers. He's in the top 5, maybe at minimum top 10. Right? We looked at Dwight Howard as the next Shaq. And he played like it. He acted like it. He was a badass. His resume speaks for itself. 8-time NBA All-Star selection, 07 to 14. All justified. All justified. The dude was a flat-out, just badass down low in the paint. He's the last of the original Mohicans regarding centers in the post. 5-time NBA rebounding leader. 2-time NBA blocks leader. He won a slam dunk contest. Like, this dude needs to be on the list, period. Damian Lillard does not have the resume to be on this list. Dwight Howard is more of a Hall of Fame candidate than Damian Lillard. That's a fact. That's a flat-out fact. So, I think that's the part that everybody gets bugged about, is that one name, Damian Lillard. Again, I don't hate Damian Lillard. He's a badass. He's unbelievable. But when you're looking at a list like this, 5, 10, 12, 15, 20 years from now, when Dwight Howard's gone and done and out of the league, and Damian Lillard's also gone and done and out of the league, when they're all just sitting around being old men and talking about this list, when it comes up to the 100 list, which will be, 25 years from now, which is in 2043 or whatever the year will be. 2040, I don't know what the year will be, 2048, whatever the year is going to be. When you look at that list and you look at where we're going to be, you look at it and you start to say, really? They put, who's Damian Lillard? Who's Damian Lillard? The kids then are going to be like, who's Damian Lillard? Our kids here at the Lead SM, all of our kids that we have right now, we're going to look at this list. They're going to look at this list and be like, my daughter, when she's 20 years old, is going to look at this list and be like, Dad, who's Damien Lillard? And I'm going to be like, listen. I'm going to be like, listen. For some reason, they wanted to put this guy as the man. He was the man in Portland. He was an unbelievable player. Unless he wins multiple championships. Listen, unless Damien Lillard goes on a tear where he wins multiple championships, and he's the man, and he wins MVPs, which I don't think anybody's going to see that happening here anytime soon. That's no knock on Damien Lillard and that he can't do it. It's just where he's at right now in his career. You've got to put the guy in who's already got the resume, and that's Dwight Howard. And I think Tracy Mcgrady should have been in as well. But all in all, when you really take a step back from that whole conversation, I am really not that upset about this list. This list is actually very, very, very good. It's just very, very frustrating regarding that end piece and those names that I listed at the top in regards to who barely got in. We all know Damian Lillard barely got in. Come on.
Come on now. They had to debate at the table in regarding who they had at the back end of the 75. They had to debate this. This couldn't have been just no, Damian Lillard should be in. Oh, hell no. There had to have been some serious people at that list being like, really? We're putting Damien Lillard in over Dwight Howard? Are you high? That had to have happened. Had to have. There's no freaking way they couldn't have thought that. Unless they have literal brain-sized goldfish brains that they couldn't remember what happened 3 days ago. Because you have to remember the fact that Dwight Howard, for a good portion, 5-year portion of the league, was in the conversation of being one of the best players in basketball. There's no debate. When you're first team All-NBA, 5 straight years in a row, you're in the conversation for the best player in basketball, and you're damn straight the best player at your position. Because that's what it is. So, that's the only part of the list I had a problem with. Honestly, for the most part, everything else was fantastic. I was not upset for the most part. It was really good. It was really good. Carmelo, Damian Lillard, really the 2 names I had maybe problems with. Everybody else, I'm cool with. I'm fine with. If you replaced them with T-Mac and Dwight Howard, man, I wouldn't even be mad. I would be like, okay. It's a good list. Phenomenal list. And I think the NBA, for the most part, did a phenomenal job. We're going to do an hour pod today. We're 40 minutes in, and I wanted to talk about Steph Curry and what he's done over the last however many years, because I feel like I've brought this up in the past, but it needs to be said again. What he did Thursday night, going, 9 of 9 from the field, 5 of 5 from 3 or something, and starting off the first quarter, 25 points. I feel like people now at this point who are in the I hate Steph Curry conversation have probably taken a step back from what they've been watching in the sport of basketball. I have been one of those where I have sat there and told you reasons as to why Steph Curry is one of the softest NBA players ever. I've told you why I don't think he can ever equate to anybody in any other era because of the way they play defense today. I've told you why I think he can't do anything because all he can do is shoot threes, and if he played back in the era of Jerry West, that he wouldn't even been that valuable because he would have shot shots that he would have gotten benched for. I still believe a lot of those things in regards to the things I talked about over the years with Stephen Curry in regards to the history aspect of the game. But here's the difference now, especially after last year. Last year I walked into the year thinking, Steph Curry, whatever. But I watched him play in March and April of last year, and I couldn't have been more blown away at the transformation that he has made over time. I remember back, for those that are at the Lead SM now, you remember my shows on the Hoopers Log, I started giving Steph Curry credit back in the 2017 season. This was my first year at the Lead SM. People knew me as the Curry hater and how I could not stand him. He made my skin crawl. He just bugged me because he was defacing the league with his style of play. And his offensive capabilities were not what they are now. And I was so upset and so frantic that people were putting him in the top 5 of the league. I'm like, no, he's not Kawhi. He's not LeBron. He's not these guys. Stop it. You're crazy. What are you talking about? What are you doing with your life? He's not a Paul George. He's not this. No, stop it. And then what he did in 2017 when KD got hurt. People forget KD got hurt that first year in Golden State. End of February, early March. Steph Curry went on this tear with this team, with the Golden State Warriors. I think they won like 20 games in a row or something. And Steph Curry was the reason that team did what they did that first year with KD. He was the reason. He started implementing his offense inside out. He started driving to the basket. He started expanding his confidence from not just the outside, but inside. And he started playing the poker game that I think I always wanted to see him play. He didn't just settle from the outside anymore. He said, you know what? I need to actually make this team better, and I need to improve and change my game to make us win games. And for that short period of time, when KD was out, before the playoffs started in 2017, Stephen Curry came out, and he played the way that you're supposed to play as a point guard. He led this team in every category in regards to his ability to lead the team, run the offense, come off screens, his ability to drive the rack, his ability to dish out. He did everything you've asked of any great point guard ever. And I sat there and I gave him props on multiple shows saying, this kind of Steph Curry is the kind of Steph Curry I wish I saw more regularly. Because when I was watching Steph Curry on a regular basis, in 2014-15 when they won their first title and when he won his MVP unanimously in 2016. I sat there and I told people, I'm like, this isn't going to last. This is a fluke. This is a once-in-a-lifetime thing you're ever going to see, and it's going to disappear. Because you're not going to win and you're not going to last shooting from the outside and playing that way. It's just not going to happen. In history, in the NBA, it hasn't shown. Guys are going to get pissed off and ram him from the outside, and he's never going to be able to do anything. To his credit, the year after he won his unanimous MVP, he said, no, I'm not settling on my laurels. I'm going to start taking it to the hoop, and I'm going to become a better player. Ever since then, he has constantly found aspects of his game that he has improved upon. Now, he is still the greatest three-point shooter of all time. I said that back in 2012. I said that back before I was doing the Hoopers log, that he's the greatest three-point shooter I've ever seen. Wasn't it back-to-back years he broke the three-point record of Ray Allen? And then the very next year, he broke his own record. And I sat there and I said, no, he's the greatest three-point shooter I've ever seen, but that's it. He can't do anything else, that's it. He can't stay healthy, that's it. What he did last year when he averaged, 30, 35 points in the month of March or April, whatever month it was, he came out and looked unstoppable. And then what he did these first couple of games to begin this season in 2021-22, it's absolutely mind-boggling. And I know people are like, well, this is old. We've seen Steph Curry completely bust things. Why are you talking about this now? It's been 5 years he's been doing this. Because here's the thing. His style back then and what he did when he won his MVPs was not something that was sustainable. You cannot sit here and tell me that a guy who is shooting from 35 feet out on a regular occasion to change the dynamic of how the defense plays is going to last, because all people have to do is get up on him, shove him, hurt him, and he's out of the league. That's not saying guys would intentionally hurt him. I'm just trying to say with the rules and how guys would run at him and etc., teams would find a way to adjust to that. And he's smart enough, to his credit, to Steph's credit. The next year, after he hit 402 threes, won unanimous MVP, the next year, he adjusted his game. That's brilliance. That's absolute brilliance. And from then on, he's played the poker game of, am I going to go inside? Am I going to dance up top and go past you? Am I going to dance past you, pass it to the outside, shoot a floater from 15 feet out? Am I going to use you as a defender to use you against your capabilities if you're out of position to score the basketball or dish it to the next guy in front of me, or to make the next pass, or to pass it, come off a screen as I'm driving to the hoop and then shoot a three from the outside, or shoot a mid-range jumper if I'm wide open? Or am I going to pump fake you and go deep? The dude is now playing the game that every all-time great should play, which is utilize the inside-out game that he now can do because he's found the confidence to take it inside and change that dynamic of the team. And now, without Klay Thompson, Draymond Green constantly being hurt, depending on the time of year, whatever happens, because it seems like he can never stay fully healthy. You're looking at a scenario now where Steph Curry can now be the guy who can go to the playoffs, play this style of basketball, and be the guy that will absolutely, completely wreck the league for the next however many years of his career. And the thing that I thought about after watching that first quarter where he went off against, I forget the team, it's Thursday when he scored 25 straight points, the Clippers. They played LA teams his first couple of games. And when he did what he did, I sat there and I said, you know what? This is very, very, very similar. Because I know a lot of people can't remember anything anymore from back in the 2000s. But this is very, very, very similar to what Kobe Bryant did from 2005 to 2008. People forget when Shaq left in 04, after the 04 year, and Kobe had to be on his own. Kobe was pissed. Kobe was all kind of upset, whatever. But Kobe Bryant took his offensive game to a level that I think a lot of us thought he could do. But it got to a point, as you can all remember, when he was averaging 40 or scoring 40 for 3 straight weeks, every single night for 3 straight weeks. He scored 50 for 2 straight weeks. He scored 81 back in 06. You get where I'm coming from. The dude went on a tear where you're just like, yeah, this is ridiculous. This is to the point where this is ridiculous. And what Steph is doing is actually getting / at that point. And I don't think anybody right now would be shocked if Stephen Curry went off on a 40-point rampage for an entire month. I don't think anybody would be shocked. I've said this multiple times to people when they come to me and they say, what do you think of this Steph Curry thing? He's doing an unbelievable job now. I mean, I thought he was as good as he was back in 2015. But I said, no, you don't understand. Now, he can drive to the hoop with the most confidence of anybody that I've ever seen. And now that he can do that with the speed, with the athleticism, with the capabilities, and his ability to fool people off the dribble better than he did back then. Better. I'm talking better now. Now it's to the point where if he played on a bad team, I'm talking like the Lakers back in 05, 06, when they didn't make the playoffs, 07 when they barely made the playoffs. Those teams where Kobe was the leader, the guy who they didn't go very far, but he was the guy. That's what Steph is. That's what he's doing now on a, let's be honest, not a great team, but they could come out of it. But with where they are right now, they're not the Warriors that they were. My point being is, Steph Curry, if he played on a Pistons, or if he played on a Cavaliers, or if he played on a bad roster, he could average 45 a night. I'm not over-exaggerating. The guy can do anything he wants offensively, with the basketball, without the basketball, his schemes, his ability to come off dribble, his ability to run lanes now, his ability to run off ball, his ability to not just run off ball as a scorer, but as a guy who can help the offense and improve. That's the kind of stuff I didn't see his MVP years. That's the kind of stuff I didn't anticipate that he would ever improve upon or take the chance to do so. But him and his personality and his ability said, no, I can step back and make those things happen. Now we're at the point where if this man can get to a level where he can win a championship as the man, which he's going to have to at this point because Clay and his health, who knows, Draymond Green and his inconsistencies with his ability to stay on the floor is an unknown, and that young team that they got now coming up. If he can lead this team to an NBA championship in this style of play, with this style of mentality, and his mentality is different, y'all. I mean, it is. Listen, I don't know if Kobe died, if he came back and said, Steph, I'm going to put some of my ilk into your body. Because when I watch Steph Curry play now, it's different. It's different. There is a Cobra-like mentality coming out of the eyes of Steph Curry when he plays now. It is not this, I'm excited, I'm here, look at me, wow, look what I did. No, it's I'm here to kill y'all. And it is absolutely vicious. And if he does these things to get his team to a championship level and wins, that's when you sit there and you say, you know what, he's the GOAT in regards to point guards. Because anybody overpassing Magic Johnson to me is sacrilege, because Magic Johnson did things in the 80s from the standpoint of growing the league and his ability to run the league and bring all them people to the arena in LA. I mean, Magic Johnson did things that changed the league. Steph Curry is damn near on that level. And if you said Steph's the GOAT in regards to point guards, listen, I wouldn't be mad at it. I think it would be a shade premature. I remember people saying Steph Curry was a top 5 point guard all time before he won his MVPs. I'm sitting there, you guys are stupid. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. After what he did in 17, improving in 18, 19, I know he got a little banged up or whatever, and then obviously 2020 he got hurt, and that was a whole different scenario, and the team was hurt. That's a whole different conversation. But after what he's done this past year, and now walking into this year, if he can keep that mentality and keep it going and stay the course and follow the process and do what he's doing to improve his game even more, yeah, you start to sit there and you start to say, Magic who? We all know Magic Johnson's still a top 5 point guard ever, and that's probably never going to change, to be honest with you. But in regards to who the GOAT point guard is, Steph Curry might be coming for that crown. And to be honest with you, I don't think anybody's going to be shocked if he does. I don't think anybody's going to be shocked if he does. I know I'm late to the party. I know I'm very late to the party. I know all y'all left. Y'all probably woke up for the next day's routines of whatever you got to do. But I'm sitting at the party at 5 a.m. on a Sunday, and I'm sitting there and I'm telling y'all, guess what? That's a bad man. That's a bad man. And if he keeps doing this for the rest of the year, he might win MVP this year again, and he might have a chance to find a way to ultimately win the championship if everybody comes back healthy. Maybe not this year, but the year after, damn. He's done it before. And if he does it again, that's where I sit there and I say, hell yeah, that's a badass man right there. Let's finish out with LeBron James. Okay. I know everybody says I'm a LeBron James hater. I don't know how you can call me a LeBron James hater if I think he's the second or third greatest player of all time. I don't get that. That doesn't make any sense to me. But I think what's unfair right now, because this has been going on since he joined LA. Really, I think the last year he was in Cleveland, which was a phenomenal year. But from an expectation perspective, I feel like we're doing this thing with LeBron right now where we talk about expectations, and I feel like people still have this feeling like he's the guy who's coming out of high. Like, I feel like people, like, there's certain points of your life where you stop growing intellectually and you stop developing as a person, just in general. And I feel like there's also a point where your opinions and your aspects of what you're doing don't ultimately match up to where you want to be and what you want to do, right? And what I'm trying to get at is when people start talking about LeBron James and where he's at in his career, people still have this ideological assumption and association with the fact that he's still 18 years old in 2003. And what blows me away is that really over the last 3 or 4 years, I've made the adjustment of looking at LeBron James as a guy where I don't have the expectation of him being the best player on the floor anymore. I don't have him being the best player on the planet anymore. I have him being a top 5 guy. And I think him being a top 5 guy is exactly what he is right now. He's not the best player in basketball anymore. There's people who've walked into this year as media members, as people who talk the sport of basketball, who've grown up around the sport of basketball, who've done all these things, right? And you've got people who sit here and still think LeBron James is the best player in basketball. There's moments. There's flashes. There's instances. Maybe that's social media impacting your brain. I don't know. But LeBron James is not the best player in basketball anymore. It's not. The two guys that are clearly ahead of him right now in regards to where they're at in their career and what they're doing and the things that they're accomplishing on the floor are Giannis Antetokounmpo and Kevin Durant. And that's not a debate. There's no debate anymore. For people to sit here and think LeBron is above them are absolutely out of their mind maniacal. They're insane. They're absolutely insane. They're not. They're insane. Even if they're playing around, they're insane. He has moments. He has instances where he's better. Sure. That's fine. A broken clock works twice a day. I ain't as good as I once was, but I'm good as I once as I ever was. Toby Keith. I mean, come on. Every once in a while it's fine. Not consistently. Not all the time. The debate that LeBron, in my book, was the best player in basketball ended after he left Cleveland, officially. The debate was still there when he was in the conversation for MVP when James Harden won the MVP. We all know that. He had an incredible year. But even for me, from an expectation perspective, I didn't expect or see LeBron athletically, ability-wise, anything really that indicated to me that he was still better than he ever was in 2018. Chris, you're a hater. What are you talking about? No, this is what I'm getting at. His 2017-2018 season is last year in Cleveland where we played 82 games. He scored the most points of anybody because he was there. And James Harden won the MVP and everybody was mad. Listen, he had an amazing year that year. But he had an amazing year based off his expectations of who he was becoming, which was older, outside dependent, flashes of brilliance. Didn't mean he had it all the time. He was efficient. That's what LeBron was in 2017-2018. He was downright efficient. He was so efficient with his game in 2018 that people think that is the greatest LeBron that they've ever seen. Now, okay, there can be an argument made from a statistic, from a resume, from a playing perspective, from the perspective that he had to carry that entire team to a finals. In 2018, that playoff run was absolutely incredible. That's not a debate. But the LeBron James of 2013 would have taken that Cavs team in 2018 and swept everybody in that playoffs. Everybody thinks that LeBron in 2018 was so great. He was. He was very good. He was very good. It was a great year in his career. But he was so efficient with his game that he could not overstep and over athletically do what he wanted to do that he could have done 5 years prior. If LeBron was the 2013 LeBron playing in 2018, they would not have gone 7 with Indiana. They would not have gone 7 with Boston. They would have absolutely trampled both of those teams. They were more talented than that Indiana team. They should not have gone 7, period. Period. Victor Oladipo would have been nothing if prime LeBron was there. If Kyrie Irving played for that Boston team in 18, I can guarantee you it's a different outcome. I'm not saying that Boston's going to the finals. I'm just telling you it might have been a better outcome for Boston in saying that they would have been a team that would have played a lot more up to the moment, and Game 7 would have been a little bit different if Kyrie was available. Circumstances. But the expectations from that moment on were that LeBron is never going to age, that he's never going to drop off from the top spot. And my thought process was, you know what? That's fair. 2018, I was wrong. LeBron James was absolutely incredible. He was. You can make the debate he was the best player in basketball. I wouldn't be mad at it. He had an unbelievable year. Second ranked in the MVP. The run that he made through the playoffs. If the Cleveland Cavaliers didn't run into the freaking vaunted Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green Warriors, yeah, maybe they would have won a finals. Who knows? That's not my point to be made. My point is I don't want you to compare the 2018 LeBron with the 2007 LeBron. You get where I'm coming? When LeBron went to the finals in 2007, no one expected them to win. They weren't talented enough. They weren't good enough. LeBron was just incredible in that playoffs. But LeBron in 2018 was kind of doing a back-end, merry-go-round, jump-a-thon type of thing, similar to the way he did in 2007, except he was on the come-up in 2007. In 2018, he was on the come-down. That's not to say he's bad in 2018. That's just to tell you, athletically, he's in a different position in his career. Come the 2018-2019 season when he joins LA, he gets hurt. These are the facts. You can't be the best player in basketball if you get hurt. Can't be. It's not right. Kawhi Leonard, best player in basketball in 2018-2019. We all know this. He came to the Raptors, won a championship, was bananas. It's crazy. Best player in basketball. He beat the Warriors. Now, I know the Warriors got hurt, but he beat the Warriors. Kawhi Leonard's the best player in basketball. You can make the debate that KD was in the same conversation as Kawhi Leonard. LeBron James wasn't there. 2019. Same year. Giannis Antetokounmpo wins MVP. He's also better than LeBron James in 2018-2019. Giannis, KD, and Kawhi. They're all better than LeBron in 2018-2019. That's just the facts. That's a fact. There's no debate there. Just because, LeBron got hurt. No, those are facts. 2020, 2021, LeBron was in the conversation with Giannis as MVP before the COVID stuff happened. And then they got to the voting of who won MVP. Giannis won MVP. LeBron finished second. LeBron wasn't the best player in the league that year. That's not a debate. No one's debating that. Giannis was the best player in basketball. I know that they won the finals. I know that LeBron won finals MVP. And he had a great time. But let's be honest, it also helped him in regards to staying healthy. Having 3 or 4 months off, coming back to the bubble, not having to travel, a little bit of an advantage if you ask me. Still wins a title, still incredible, still one of the greatest players of all time. But he's clearly not where he was. Because then you look at the next season, they get bumped in the first round. I think what we're doing to LeBron with the down tail end of his career, which is where we're at. He's not at the end like terrible. We're coming down the pike, right? We're coming down the pike of the finish line. It's in sight. It is in sight. It's 3 or 4 years down the road. It's not like it's 10 years down the road like it was when he was in Cleveland for the second stint. LeBron James, his expectation should be a top 5 player. His expectation shouldn't be the best player. He's not the best player in the league anymore. You shouldn't have that expectation of a guy in his 19th year. Therefore, if your expectation is not the fact that he's not the best player in the league anymore, you should also not sit there and say, well, why did LeBron disappear against the Warriors in game 1 of the season? How about you calm down? Or how about when they played against the Phoenix Suns? Oh my God, they were down by 30 plus points to the Phoenix Suns. Oh my God, they're absolutely trash. LeBron James is trash. Why is he trash? No, how about you have realistic expectations for the man at this point? I know that's not really acceptable because for the last 20 years we've had unrealistic expectations for LeBron. But if you actually have more realistic, more rational, more understandable expectations for LeBron James, you can look at the Los Angeles Lakers and say, you know what? They might not be an NBA championship contender. I didn't say they were this year. I said they were in the conversation of being a top 3, top 4 team in the West. I don't think they're a championship contender. I'm not saying that because they just lost to Phoenix. I'm just telling you that if you have realistic expectations for players, especially a guy like LeBron James, you won't be as freaked out and say, oh my God, he's being trash. No, he's 19 years in. If LeBron retired right now, he'd be conversationally, debatably the GOAT. He's debatably the GOAT. That's huge. That's gigantic. And for people to just sit there and be like, What the hell's going on with LeBron? Why isn't he playing? I don't know. Maybe because he's 37 in about 2 months. He's going to be 37. Chill out. He's doing an amazing job for where he's at in his career. He looks unbelievable for where he's at in his career. That doesn't mean I'm going to sit here and say he's the best player on the planet right now. Oh, hell no. He's going to have games where he's going to go off for 36, 5, and 15. He's going to have those kind of games where he just looks like the old LeBron. And someone on Twitter, or the mass of people who still believe LeBron's the best player on the planet, oh my God, look at him. He's 37 and he just went off for 45 points. He's going to do that still. That's what legends do. When Magic Johnson came out of retirement after his HIV stint, what did he put up, like 30 or something points in his first couple of games back? This is what legends do. This shouldn't be like oh my God, look at that. That's amazing. He's never done, oh my God, look at that. No, stop it. Stop it. We're 20 years in with this dude. No. I'm not going to pull and play the shenanigans of, oh my God, look at how great LeBron is. No, LeBron's amazing. LeBron could lay down and not do anything for the rest of the season. And I'm going to sit there and tell you he's one of the greatest players ever. That's just the facts. I'm not amazed at what he does anymore. And I'm also not amazed if he falls off a cliff and turns into Fat Elvis. I'm not going to sit here and play that game with, oh my God, you hate LeBron. I don't hate LeBron. I've seen enough of his whole entire career. I've watched his whole entire career from middle school to now. I've watched him every single time. He's unbelievable. He's debatably the greatest player of all time. And if you want to make that debate, fine. I don't agree with it, but I ain't gonna hate you for it. But with where he's at right now, 37 in 2 months, 36 years old, he's got a couple of injuries now that are starting to linger. And for where he's at in his career, he looks phenomenal. Just say he's a top 5 player. We have at the Lead SM. At the Lead SM, we have him as the 3rd best player walking into this season. That is perfectly fair. That is perfectly fair with me. You can make the debate right now, Steph Curry is a better player than LeBron James. And I wouldn't be mad at that. I actually probably would agree with that. You could probably say a healthy Kawhi, but again, not healthy because he's never healthy, is probably better than LeBron James. That's fair. That's a top 5 player still. That's what he is. Those are damn good players to be better than LeBron James. If LeBron's not better than them, oh my God, the world must be burning down. Oh, well, hold on, wait a minute. It kind of is. My point is, to have those expectations of LeBron to be that kind of player right now is insane. He's not matching Giannis athletically right now. He's not. He's not matching Kevin Durant scoring the basketball wise. He's not. He has no bag similar to Kevin Durant. Steph Curry, he can't touch Steph Curry regarding what he's doing right now offensively. He just can't do it. He just can't get there anymore. He's 36. He's not in the prime of his career anymore. He's better than everybody else. That's pretty freaking incredible if you ask me. That's pretty phenomenal. But to say he's the best player in the league, can you just step back for a minute? Can you get off your crazy pills for a minute and be realistic? I'm telling you, if you're more realistic about LeBron James, you're going to look at guys like Stephen A. Smith or Skip Bayless or Colin Cowherd or anybody who comes out and gets upset at the fact that LeBron's not playing up to standards or whatever, and you're gonna look at them and you're gonna be like, really? Like you're going back to the well. You're going back to the well. You're going back to grab more ratings out of the well to get people riled up. Are you dumb? Are you dumb? Dude's 36 years old. He shouldn't be in the same conversation as Giannis. Giannis is 26, 27. KD's what, 33, 34? Steph is 32, 33 in that area. All of them are in their prime. He shouldn't be in that conversation. He should be in the, hey, how do we evolve our career to stay around a little bit longer to be effective portion of his career? And he's still in the conversation of a top 5 player. That's remarkable. That is remarkable. He should be. He should be in that conversation. By next year and the year after, he'll probably be in the conversation as a top 10 player. Because just athletically and physically with where he's at, that's just what he's going to be. And that's no knock on him. That's just where we are. I think LeBron's goals now are multiple things. I've heard it from multiple people, and I think it's fantastic. I think he's on the conversation of wanting to try and play with his son, get 40,000 points, which you can easily do. He's at over 35,000 right now. He's going to easily pass. He's going to pass Carmelo this year. I think he's going to pass Kareem here in a couple of years, maybe 2 or 3. And then, probably be the first player to 40K, 10K, 10K, or 15, or however, whatever the stats line up to be. I mean, the dude's resume is probably going to be very Tom Brady-like, where it's like, damn, he played for 24 years, and he did these things, and he became arguably the GOAT. I think within the next 2 or 3 years, like I've mentioned, if he wins a championship or 2, it turns into that conversation of, you're kind of crazy if you don't think LeBron's in the same conversation as MJ. That's not saying that he's better than MJ right now, because I don't think that'll ever be the case. But to say he's not at least like nip and tuck, shoulder to shoulder with him by the time it's all said and done, if he keeps doing what he's doing and he keeps playing to some level of degree, 22, 23 points a game, 21, 22 points a game near the end of his career, still averaging 7 or 8 assists, 5 or 6 rebounds, doing things like that for the next 5 to 6 years. If he does that, I mean, you get to a point where you're just like, okay, like it, yeah, the longevity, because that becomes the conversation where longevity is the real point of everything. Can you do it for as long as LeBron did? You can be an amazing player. You can be T-Mac in the early 2000s. You can be Kevin Garnett in the early 2000s. You can be Kevin Durant in the, in his prime with the Golden State Warriors. You can be Michael Jordan with the Bulls. You can be Magic in the 80s. You can be all these great players, but can you do it for 20 years? That's what LeBron's standing point's going to be. It's going to be longevity. It's going to be the fact that he can do this for an amount of time he's been doing it. And that's where then you start to say he's in the GOAT conversation because of the longevity alone. That's why a lot of people call Tom Brady the GOAT. I personally don't call Tom Brady the GOAT because Tom Brady, to me, has played for so damn long, and he's been around for so many teams, and he's decided to just play longer than everybody that he's better. Just because you've played longer than everybody doesn't mean you're necessarily better. It just means you've
been around longer. So my point being is the expectation of LeBron's got to tone down just a shade. It's just a shade. He's not the best player in basketball anymore. He's really not. And if you think he needs to play that way and be that way to be successful, I'm sorry, you've got unrealistic expectations. We've had unrealistic expectations on LeBron for his entire career. How about for the last back half of his career, for this decade at least, we just sit back and say, appreciate what we're watching, because once it's gone, we're never going to see it again. Look at Kobe Bryant, look at Shaq, look at all these great players that have come down the pike over the years. Tim Duncan. We've got to just have some more realistic expectations. And if LeBron is given those here in the back half of his career and we see him, just sit there in awe. That's what I'm doing. I mean, from the overall long-term, the all-time great perspective conversation, yeah, okay, that's a different story. But in regards to the now, just watch him and be like, dude, that's a 36-year-old playing with a bunch of 23, 25-year-olds. Like, that's what he's doing. It's nuts. It's nuts. And he's doing it at the highest level ever. It's nuts. It's crazy. It's goaty. So, anywho, I've gone way over time. Thank you again for listening. We'll recap what's happened over this next week because it's going to be phenomenal. I'm sure what you've seen here over the last however many days, that Knicks and Celtics game was absolutely phenomenal Wednesday. I mean, oh my God, you watched that? That was just pure sensationalism. That was just phenomenal. Everything that we've seen, everything that we've gone through here over the last couple of weeks with the lead SM. The W should be on tomorrow. Congratulations to the Chicago Sky. They won the championship. Candace Parker again. What an unbelievable year by her. Candace Parker is she the GOAT? Is she the GOAT in WNBA? I can't tell. I cannot tell. But I can tell you this. They're the champions. Candace Parker found a way to get it done. And boy, that was a great WNBA finals. I heard a lot of good things. I watched a couple of games. I was pretty intrigued. I said this in the last pod, interluding to the W. We're doing such a phenomenal job here with the W. I really wanted to give a shout out to them. I could never imagined, sitting here with the lead for 6 years and seeing an entity like the W growing the way it's growing. You're seeing players around the NBA and other parts of sports really put their hands around the WNBA and make it the entity that it's starting to become, which is a cult phenom, which is fantastic. I think it's fun. I think it's interesting. It's different. It's something that I can put my arms around as somebody who's seen something grow, and it's growing real close to us. And I can't say enough about our group here at the Lead, who's promoting the WNBA as much as we are. It's really truly a great job, and it's a testament to their ability to grow the sport bigger and to make it a bigger entity. And that's very big stuff moving forward. And I hope we keep it going. And by the time we walk into next year's WNBA season, these guys will be the ones to give it to you, and I think they're going to be the lead anchors of what we see here regarding the WNBA moving forward. And it's a big testament to them. Bailey's been phenomenal. You got Akil, who's done an incredible job, and I'm forgetting the other name, but those are the two main guys that I've heard for the most part. You're all doing a phenomenal job. So credit to them. Their podcast is up next here on Wednesday. Thanks again for listening to episode 6, season 8 here of the Hoopers Log. Episode 7 will be next week, the first week of November 2nd. If I'm not mistaken. November 2nd, we'll be back here talking first 2 weeks of the NBA season. I promise we'll talk more about what's actually going on in the NBA instead of historical stuff that we just brought up. Thanks again for listening, everybody. Have a good one.